Welcome and thank you everyone for joining us for my Tale of Four Gamers series. Joining us tonight, we have the other three gamers of our four gamers. We have, going around clockwise, Mike, Willard, and Murray. Mike and Murray will not be familiar to anyone who's watched any of my other videos because they have not yet featured yet, because I haven't gone back and edited the Silent War video yet. They will appear at some point, and Murray's name has appeared being cursed multiple times in my videos. But
Hashtag Gum
yeah,
did nothing wrong.
They'll turn up at some point. Willard, of course, will be familiar to anyone who watched my Bretonia painting lore video, because he appeared very briefly in the video showing what sound issues I'd had. And he also appeared in my Old Hammer Battle Report from the campaign weekend last year, where he was so close to winning the entire weekend. Came second in the end. I believe your elf chariot met the wrong end of a bloodthirster.
Yeah, no, we had to duel between our mighty lords at the end of the event, and I thought I had brilliant ace in the hole because I had a high elf riding a chariot, and he had a magic sword that basically stopped everyone else's magic items from working. So basically, it didn't matter what combination of incredible magic items you had, you were still going to get a chariot in the face, right? Okay. Unfortunately, I was outsmarted by Ian, who brought an actual factual bloodthirster, and the being on a chariot did enable me to survive the first round of combat, as the bloodthirster killed all of my charioteers and horses and blew up my chariot. But sadly, then I had to actually fight the bloodthirster, and it was very heroic. It was very Warhammer. It reminded me very much of that illustration from the High Elf book, where you've got like a tiny High Elf lord fighting a giant multi-armed demon. But sadly, the reality of that fight is the elf lord just dies.
So you're saying you brought a load of ablative wounds, essentially, rather than a transport?
Well, I mean, ablative wounds and that is the great thing about a chariot in 5th edition Warhammer, that effectively, no matter how skilled your opponent is, he swings his sword and who knows what he'll hit. It could be anything.
It wasn't the only chariot that met its end that weekend.
No,
as we've been discussing.
Yeah, I managed to have the worst car wreck of my life leaving that event. So my chariot was destroyed by a bloodthirster, and then my car was destroyed by two guys street racing around Warhammer World, which was pretty extraordinary. So yeah, that you can see from Ben's picture what was left of the car after the crash, but you'll note that there's no back wheels to it, which is pretty extreme. But I was fine.
Possibly the most expensive trip to Warhammer World.
I mean, it really is saying something about the price of Warhammer miniatures, that it's probably not the most expensive trip to Warhammer World anyone's ever done. It was only a Volkswagen Golf, so I'm guessing some people have dropped more than the sort of $8,000 a Volkswagen Golf costs, but who knows?
We have completely segued off from our Tale of Four Gamers. So I'm going to bring up my month one list here. There we go. So just to recap, for anyone who's not watched my earlier video, the idea for this is we are recreating the original Tale of Four Gamers from White Dwarf from 1998. So I'm doing Bretonians. Mike, you are doing
Skaven.
Willard.
Beastmans.
Murray.
Wood Elves.
And we are doing it exactly as they did back then. So we've fired up the time machine, and first month we have £50 to spend at 1998 prices. And then each month after this, we'll have £25 to spend. So, for example, my first month, I've gone with 3 boxes of Bretonian Knights. So that's £15, £5 for 2 nights. So 6 nights altogether. And then the command for my Knights of the Realm, which is £4 per blister pack. So that's another 12. A box of Bretonian Archers, which gives me 8 archers for £5. And Bertrand the Brigand and his companions, Petit Hugo and Guy Legros, which aren't Robin Hood at all, honest Gov. Then for my general, I've gone for essentially it's a Grail Knight Champion is what I've paid for. I've paid that as the £5 cost. Because what I've actually got is the Special Edition Lord that came in the Bretonian, the Warhammer Fantasy Starter Box, which if you've seen my, oh my god, look what I found at the tip unboxing video, it was in there. So I've treated that as if it's a Greylite champion, because that was the most expensive single kind of character list you could get. And then I had in my bits box, left over from my 6th edition Bretonnian army, the Green Knight's horse, which clocked in at £5 back in the day. So that brings you to a neat £50 altogether. And I'll just throw yours up, Mike.
So when I got to Skaven, I was like, cool, I can do a horde of Skaven. And then I started looking at 1998 prices of Skaven, and realized I might actually struggle to get a 2,000 point army for £150 if I buy things like Skaven slaves, which are an almighty 2.5 points a model, and they were metal for £1.25 each. So I've just gone with I think 80 plastic clan rats, which is 8 boxes, £5 each, is 40 quid, and then 5 command models. There'll be a 6th turning up next month, because I'm going to do 3 units of 20 clan rats, 2 units of 10 slaves. So yeah, I've got a lot of clan rats this month.
So you've gone to get all the troops, or the bulk of your troops, out of the way in the first month.
Yeah, I hesitate to say all the troops because it's only 85 clan rats. But it'll be the bulk of them. Well, I blame eBay. I was aiming to have 2 units of 20, and then I put in a load of bids on clan rats going cheap, thinking I'd be outbid, and I suddenly won an extra 50 clan rats. I'm like, oh, well, might as well paint them.
I'll throw yours up, Willard. Here we go.
So my list is. So I really love the Beastman Shaman, the Warhammer Plus one that came out. And so, but I also, when I was a child, when this was my era of collecting, I loved the familiar models as well. And obviously that Beastman Shaman, Lady Beastman Shaman, comes with 4 familiar. So it just kind of instantly hooked me into Beastmen. And so I'm going to do a Beastman Shaman Lord. Because obviously if you're going to take a wizard, you've got to take the best wizard. And then she's got 4 capering familiars who do her bidding and make her the greatest magic user of all. She'll show all you people with you know, robes and beards and things. But anyway, then on top of her, obviously she needs a legion of idiots to worship her. And so so effectively at the time, a Beastman Shaman was £5. And then the box of the blister of familiars was also, I think, £4, I think. And then I've got 3 boxes of plastic gore to make a units of roughy tufty beastmen to kind of smash things with their hammers and be quite mean. But then the thing I really wanted and was really excited about was you can have a lot of Ungor, and Ungor are the shittest beastmen of all. They're like the worst imaginable beastmen. And the reason they're called Ungor is Gore are beastmen with horns, Ungor are beastmen who haven't got horns. They're not mutant enough to be hard. They're really fun to use. They all look like they're capering around stealing milk and Christmas ornaments. And essentially, I looked at how much they are, and they are ludicrously cheap in points, but ludicrously expensive in money. So in my first month, I've got like 3 boxes of beastmen, of like good beastmen, a hero, some capering familiars. And then I've got 20 losers, really expensive losers, who cost £1.25 each, to be like a kind of they're the circus. Well, I've basically made a circus. They're the clowns in the circus, and that's what you come for, basically.
Is this how you're going to paint them? We're going to get like different makeup on each one.
They're going to be bright red. I'm going for the 6th ed box art version of Beastman, where they have like Diablo imp-like skin,
like brick red almost.
Yeah, really, really fiery red skin. And yeah, they're going to be very entertaining. I think I'm really looking forward to painting them. I've done 1 test model. Unfortunately, the brick red I was aiming for came out as like Brits Abroad suntan disaster. So somewhere between like horribly sunburned and has upended a strawberry squishy over his head, which was
rejected from Love Island.
Yeah, it was not the look I was going for. I'm becoming slightly attached to it, so I might keep 1 sunburned beast man.
So you said about taking the 4 familiars. Which 4 familiars is that from the Magic book then?
So they are the 4 familiars I'm getting. I'm getting a Chaos familiar, who enables you to cheat on your dice rolls. A power familiar who enables you to have extra magic cards and also explodes when they die. A warrior familiar, because if you think chaos warriors are good, imagine a chaos warrior who can fit in your pocket.
He's about that big.
He's tiny, and yeah, basically he gives you. He's got 2 attacks that go before everything, like even before like magic weapons that always let you strike first, or chariot impact hits, or doomed, or like spinning axes from dwarves. He goes before everything. It's ridiculous. Presumably because he leaps into your pocket and causes trouble.
Yeah, so he's got weapon skill 5 and strength 4.
Yeah, he's quite hard. Especially considering he's so tiny. He's really mean. And then the other one I've got is the really exciting one. This is the one who's carrying the big pile of scrolls, I assume, is the spell familiar. And that gets you an extra spell, which is really exciting because that means a level 4 shaman will have 5 spells. And if you've got 5 spells, there's only 10 in the deck. So you can guarantee any spell you want if you want one particular spell. And I do want one particular spell. And that one particular spell is the spell Transformation of Cadon, which lets you turn into any of a wide variety of stupid monsters. So I'm going to spend loads of my budget on things for my wizard to turn into. It's going to be great.
So basically, you're doing Pokemon. He'll just kind of reach into his pocket and throw out a different monster and go, "I choose you."
Well, I'd start with 4 monsters capering around me, probably saying their names over and over again. Like come on, dude.
Little warrior figure. Warrior.
Power familiar. Yeah, absolutely. Power. So they are all going to be. They all have to have slightly different voices, obviously. So the power one have to be like power. We get 2 Pokemon with it, but yeah. No, suffice to say, yeah. So the 4 of them will be capering around her, and then she'll be turning into a variety of monsters. I think within the budget, I don't think I can get all 4 monsters you can turn into with Transformation of Cadon. I can definitely get a Chimera and a Hydra in the budget. And yeah,
Cockatrice. Cockatrice isn't on the list, is it?
No, it's not on the list. I can't turn into a Cockatrice, sadly. I might buy
Can't turn
one.
people to stone.
No, I might buy one just to be flapping around. But yeah, that's the plan. So yeah, it's a bunch of beastmen, a bunch of bunch of okay beastmen, a bunch of rubbish beastmen, and then a wizard who's basically going to do all the hard work.
Well, we were talking about this during the Brush Talk video, and one of the things we realised is that the terror rules from 5th edition mean that you take a terror test once for each model, for each miniature. But so if your sorcerer turns into, for example, a wyvern, then you have to take a terror test for it. But that's it. Once you pass that terror test, you're done for that model. But because it specifically says the word miniature in the rules as written, if you then turn into, for example, a manticore, which also causes terror, then you have to take a separate terror test for that.
Yeah, it makes sense that you might be afraid of wyverns, but not manticores. I mean, that makes perfect sense.
But my Skaven are afraid of everything,
including themselves.
They will just be running away.
I think it will be fine when you think about all the things I have to actually do, including like cast the spell, get into position, fly around, not get the spell dispelled. I think, unlike taking a terror-causing monster, I think there's a lot more steps that prevent me from just ruining everybody's life. So,
I suppose the benefit as well is if you turn into a monster, any wounds you take as the monster, when you turn back into the wizard, they carry over. So if, you, for example, the monster has a higher wound stat than the wizard does, and you take the maximum number of wounds, or nearly the maximum number of wounds that the monster could take, the moment spell's dispelled, your wizard's basically dead.
Yeah, absolutely. Or you might just choose to end the spell because you don't want to be a wyvern anymore, and you just want to end your life as a beast man.
I'm now liking the idea that you've got like the cockatrice in the army as well, and people keep looking at going, which wizard is that? Which wizard's turned into that? It's like, no, that's just along for the ride as well.
Absolutely. Or maybe it's a wizard that just can't turn back because it's taken too many wounds.
I wonder how many monsters in the Warhammer world are actually wizards who've been transformed by the transformation of Cadon and just can't turn back anymore.
I mean,
begging for like a healing potion or something.
There's a Black Library novel there.
I hope you can't use magic items when you're in a dragon form, or you bring a healing potion with you. I know. I don't think you can cast spells because
he wouldn't have any. magic item spots left because you'd have used all 4 magic item slots for the 4 familiars.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
that's all 4 of my magic item slots.
I'm safe from you having a healing potion sat on your
I-
dragon or whatever you turn into.
The really sick thing to do would be to have like Chaos Armor and the Black Amulet, and then you'd have all those big monsters, and they'd have a 4-up armor save, and they'd be able to rebound wounds with a 4-up.
Well, they wouldn't, because the Beastman would have the armor and the amulet, but while you were a Wyvern or a Chimera, you wouldn't be wearing armor.
Sadly,
So you wouldn't get you wouldn't use the stats for the Wyvern or whatever.
I agree with you that you wouldn't be wearing the armor, but the way it works out, especially seeing as Chaos Armor is supposed to be your skin, I think it does actually. Sadly, I think it does actually work that you would get the wards and all that sort of jazz.
But it wouldn't be your skin anymore, because your skin would have become Wyvern skin.
Maybe.
I don't think you'd get the benefit of any other magic items.
Well,
And also, what do your familiars do when you get transformed?
I assume that they fly around with you. That's my assumption.
They go back in their Pokeballs,
I assume
disappear in your
that they go in
pockets.
I assume that people are much happier to have like rubbish familiars capering around than they are for me to have the Black Amulet. I mean, like,
Yeah, to be honest.
Or the Forbidden Rod.
Yeah.
Oh god, because you can still cast spells while you're in monster form.
I don't think
No, you can't. No,
Sorry,
you can't cast, but you made a spell.
Okay.
What you could do with the Forbidden Rod, I don't know if this would work properly, but it'd be cool if you could use the Forbidden Rod to reduce your stats, but you're reducing your monster stats. Like,
well, you couldn't cast though while you're in monster form, so you wouldn't be reducing your stats.
Tragic. I mean, that's a
rod because you'd be able to use it.
It's a classic Warhammer Magic conversation right there. Like,
yep.
The best thing to do with the Forbidden Rod, because basically the way the Forbidden Rod, in case you're under 30 and have no idea what the Forbidden Rod does, basically the way it works is you can reduce permanently forever in a campaign. That's what it was intended for. You could reduce one of your stats by 1 to cast a spell, and nobody could stop it. And that was awesome, because the first thing you would do is have a wizard on a horse who would just wither his legs off. Just be like, I'm just going to balk my move. I'm just literally going to chop my legs off to cast 4 spells with total power.
Do it with an elf as well, where you've got fairly high movement anyway.
I'm looking at the 5th edition Magic book. You just take a wound.
No, there's one where it is you reduce your stats by 1. I don't know if the Forbidden Rod, it might be a different one. Might be the Book of Assure or something like that. There's definitely
so many magic items.
There's definitely one where you reduce your stats.
The Forbidden Rod, you take a wound on a 4+ after each use.
Book of Secrets, you'd lose D6 characteristic points each time you use it, but it doesn't cost anything to cast spells.
But that's Forbidden Rod, you get a free total power cast, but on a 4+ you take a wound, and it's like that means you can get your transformation of Kadorn straight off with a total power. I am now a big.
It does cost 75 points though. That's
it's way cooler. It's way cooler to have the 4 familiars.
I agree.
Much cooler.
I'm going to move on to Murray's month 1.
Oh yeah.
Here we go.
Oh. So what did I buy? I bought some things.
Murray, what are you taking?
So I went pretty standard for the first month. So I got 2 boxes of wood elves, wood elf archers. They used to come in a little box, in fact, that looks because it looks like this. Oh, look at that! And look, that's from the 80s. Look how magnificent that cardboard is. Anyway, that's was £5 for each of them. So I've got 2 boxes of those. So I've got 16 archers. And then I got 2 full elf commands, because you used to be able to buy those. You could either buy the models individually. I think they were like £2 each, and then the actual commander was £3, even though there was less stuff on him. But there you go. So you could get a full command for seven quid. So I got 2 of those for the 2 units. Although they might merge into 1 unit during games, don't know. But got two of them. Then I got a wood elf general for 6 quid, and who's just a general, and he will probably never be used, because later on he gets an upgrade to a dragon, which is there. And then 5 blisters of Glade Guard with bows. because they're funny and they can shoot in combat and run away if you try and charge them, and then shoot you again, and just be little gits really on the tabletop. Essentially,
Isn't that
how
all
I
of the
like.
Wood Elf Army? Isn't that all of the Wood Elf Army though?
Yeah, so the actual I did what the chap Richard did in the actual White Dwarfs, and I pointed up my force beforehand because I like a plan. And so I sort of pointed it up a bit and sort of went with, well, how am I going to purchase this army in the 5 months? So some creative accountancy is going to happen in which money won't be spent in certain months, transferred into the next month, which I will use as my grand opening day that they did, and get the 2 for 3 deal, which will enable me to get a lot of War Dancers and Way Watchers.
I should have explained what we've agreed is because in the original Tale of 4 Gamers, quite often people would go to like store openings where you get special deals like buy 3 boxes, get for the price of 2, or buy 3 blister packs for the price of 2. We've agreed that 1 month you can do exactly the same that with your purchases. So you can treat it as if we've gone to a store opening and get extra stuff for that month. Just to confirm, it was Richard Hobson that did the Wood Elf Army, because there were 2 Richards. There was Richard Hobson, who did the Wood Elves, and Richard Gunson, who did the Bretonians, who has actually already liked the idea for this in one of the previous videos on Facebook.
That's cool.
Which I had a bit of a starstruck moment. But so you've done literally just like Richard Hobson has. You've written out your army list already.
Yep.
Pre-planned the whole thing.
Pre-planned the whole thing. Sort of worked out when I'm going to do. So next month I know what I'm going to be purchasing. The month after that I think it's going to be a shit ton of Hawk Riders, because you used to get them for £5 each. So I'm going to get a unit of 5 of them. And one of them is going to be a champion, and he's going to hit the Hail of Doom arrow, because it's funny and it's also a staple for Wood Elves. Just flap about behind people and then just fling a load of shots at them.
Repeatedly.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, I hope you don't like having men.
Well, I've actually got some pictures of what you've got for this, so let me throw it in, and I'll just quickly get to your. There it is. So yeah, we are. That's your first month.
Oh yes.
That's all neatly stripped.
Yes.
Before you started painting.
Yes.
That's undercoated. Some of the initial base colors. Oh, and that's as you got them before you stripped them.
So, yes. So they all went into BioStrip, and I think I must have bought like 3 or 4 tubs of BioStrip, and just things went in. And they
including
all.
This guy.
Yes. Yes.
So he came to you like that originally.
Yeah, he was. You know what? He wasn't actually badly painted, but I obviously wanted to paint him, so he did get the BioStrip, which melted some of the super glue.
Cost you a bit more than £25 it would have back in 1998.
Yeah. So so £30. I think they were £30.
I think you're right, 30.
Yeah, £30. So there's going to be some, finagling, for 1 month, but so they would go. I was having a look for those on eBay, and there was one that went for 125, I think, about that. There was one that was on for 150 odd. Yeah, they were pricey. I was like, fair enough, old mini. But then there was one that was like, I think 40 or 50 quid or something like that. So I put in a little snipey bid, like £5 higher, which apparently won. And then so I got him for like 50 odd quid or something along those lines.
That's still a pretty good bargain. I mean, that's basically 20 quid over what you would have paid a couple of decades ago.
I know, and I'm never going to get rid of him. It's just going to stay with me. Like, no.
I think you got a pretty good bargain on these guys as well.
Yeah, so a load of them I got free from Mike, because apparently he has just hordes of old miniatures just lying about in his house.
I wouldn't say entirely free, because you had to put in quite a lot of work to get the paint off of them.
Yeah, so I don't know what
painted them when I was 10, maybe.
It's that black horse there, the one you've undercoated there. I don't know what you've used to paint him. There are still some spots on him. He went into BioStrip 3 times. I think you must have gone to Portsmouth and gone, that ship, I want the paint that's on that, please.
Gloss wall paint or something.
Yeah, that's like the paint that goes on battleships. Not going to chip. Yeah, and yeah, there's still some paint on him, but it's going to get undercoated. But yeah, I was just cursing your name when I was doing it. It was like just there with a toothbrush for like 20 minutes. I was like, this isn't coming off.
Well, at least they've gone to a good home.
Yeah.
And I think this is how they're looking at the moment, is it?
Yes. Yeah, that's exactly. Yeah, it was like a couple of minutes ago. I've just done a little bit of Agrax on some of the brown bits, but yeah, they're almost done. They just need a bit of basing, and then I'll do the command, and that'll be a unit done.
Cool. Do you think you'll get your first month's work before the end of the month?
Hopefully, but you have got so many projects making me. Well, you've got me doing so many projects for all of the things that are happening this year, including
if you
Harlequins.
did the same army for each of my events, it wouldn't be a problem.
I did.
Like if you used previous armies, I mean.
Oh no, okay, no, that's a. So I've used
you
the
army
same...
each time I run an event.
Yeah, so I use the same Space Marine chapter, but always a different army and different models. Yeah, that is fair. Yeah, no, so I've got Harlequins to paint for you. I've got Wood Elves to paint for you. I've got an entire new Inquisitor to scratch, build, and then paint for you. Yeah, no, it's fine. Just keep me busy.
So I shouldn't tell you about the idea I was talking to Bobby the other day of doing an event playing 3rd edition 40k.
No, please don't. Not this year.
Thinking at the end of this year.
2024.
Not 2nd edition.
No, 3rd. 3rd, I've played 2nd, but I didn't play much of it. But 3rd edition 40k was the one that I bought pretty much all the codexes for and all the rules for. So I've got that on the shelf behind me. And yeah, I'm looking forward to digging it out and getting some games in with it.
It's a really tight rule set. It's really good, especially if you play it right. If you play it out of the rule book, because obviously it's got all the army lists in the rule book, and then the codexes came out. Like I think Dark Eldar and Marines were out pretty quickly after the codex.
They were out first, I think,
after the book release. But playing it right out of the book, it's actually it's a very my memory of it is it just being such a kind of a pure experience after 2nd edition. The 2nd edition was so cluttered, so clumsy, and everyone had dog-eared cards, and then suddenly you were into 3rd ed and it was like psychics, we've had enough of those for 20 years, that are gone.
Well, I think
everything was toned down.
2nd ed was almost more of a role play game than a war game, and then third ed seemed to come out as a proper war game.
2nd edition had this sort of, obviously you had 1st edition, which was very firmly like you were meant to have a GM for Rogue Trader. And you know there are many rules decisions in Rogue Trader that makes a lot of sense in the context if you've got a GM who can say no, maybe the power field turns off now, for example. But yeah, 2nd edition is this like really uncomfortable hybrid between they want it to be a war game, but also they want to have all of the role playing elements in it, and it's like a fully cake and eat it experience. Like
I think they were developing that and Necromunda at the same time, and they shared the rule set. And so it worked for skirmish style games, but then they were upping the ante with wargaming.
I just remember 2nd edition games taking absolutely forever.
Well, yeah,
for one term take over an hour.
Yeah, because it was like
came out a long time afterwards. So 2nd edition came out in 92, and Necromunda came out in 96. I think 95 or 96.
Was it that late afterwards? Because it worked very well as a skirmishy style game. Because like parrying rules, for example, they get them in.
It worked really well in like small games, like when you've got 2 or 3 squads aside. Like it works really nicely, and then you try and play full games, and it's like it's when you're splitting out 2 units fighting into individual one-on-one fights to see what happens. Takes a while.
Yeah, and there's also like as soon as anyone's stats start to pull away from like the number 4, it really gets out of hand. So I distinctly remember very early in 2nd edition seeing if Ragnar Blackmane could beat 30 Goth Orc boys, and he absolutely could without any trouble at all. And I remember people being very upset about that at the time, that my one Space Marine could kill their 30 Orc boys. Like,
on the other hand, the even saw Assassin in 2nd ed. At least that did kind of match. It was one of those whole one-man army things. It could just dispatch an entire army on its own, unless it got blown up by a battle cannon round.
I have very strong memories of Ghazghkull Thraka being the best way my brother could deal with him with an Imperial Guard army was get him in combat with a squad of infantry and then shoot the entire army into the combat and hope you kill Ghazghkull. Because you could, and you would hit your own men. But I would rather kill my own squad of men and Ghazghkull than let Ghazghkull run where he wants to go. So
We'll hit our own men. Yes, we'll hit theirs as well. We have reserves.
That's what they're for.
that was entirely a valid tactic.
Maybe I'll take pity on Murray, and I won't do a 3rd edition 40k event this year. Maybe if this Tale of 4 Gamers goes down well, we could do like a 3rd edition 40k Tale of 4 Gamers next year. So this is what you've got painted so far this month.
It's not even. It's not the whole thing. It's all now assembled. I need to send you another picture, but it is now all assembled, and it's it's just a matter of like, as I said, I did a test model, it didn't work out, and it's a bad idea to batch paint things before you've tested the color scheme to see if it works.
We'll send me a picture of the boiled lobster picture.
I will.
I'd quite like to include that.
I will. It's a bad roll on that D1000 table. Skin like a lobster skin. I'm sure it's in there somewhere.
Probably gives you like +1 armor or something.
Probably quite good in the game, but
on the other hand, I've got an army of Frenchmen. So pursuing you across the board, singing Le Poisson, or something.
Absolutely. That poor bastard. They're just so delicious. It's not his fault he's so delicious.
Let me throw Mike's slides up. So, Mike, you've got loads of pictures for me to share. Well, some of this is stuff that you've not got in your first month.
Yeah, most of it's stuff I've not got in my first month. So I set myself a bit of a rule because anybody who collects Oldhammer will quite know just how painful it can be on your pocket nowadays, trying to get hold of some of the older models. So I decided I would look at how much 1998 pounds are in modern pounds and not spend more than an inflation-adjusted amount, which meant that I have put in an awful lot of bids on eBay and not won as much as I possibly could have. But that's fine, because it works out as roughly 2 to 1, at least when I last checked this, which was when we started this, so don't know what's happened since. But so it's quite nice and easy being able to look at the old prices and basically go, I'll bid up to twice as much. So I put in quite a lot of bids, assuming I would be outbid on quite a lot of things. And most of them I were, apart from Clan Rats, where I've now ended up with 80. But it's also over the couple of months since this was started, I've picked up most of the army. So yeah, I've now just got around to painting it, which
I think you've been using the contrast paints to give it kind of that traditional 90s brightly coloured Skaven look.
Yes, the Skaven back in the 90s were brightly coloured robes all over the place. So I picked 5 contrast paints to do my Clan Rats. I've got a green, a red, a blue, a purple, and a grey. And I basically have split up my Clan Rats into 5 groups and then did all of the tunics. There we go. I'm being crazy and batch painting 85 Skaven in one go. So yeah, I split them all up, did the tunics, then I split them all up again so that they then had different coloured shawls to their tunics and did all of those. And then I did all of the fur and then the skin and then the gold and then yeah, there was a lot more steps than I was intending. But I'm getting through them.
And you've used Storm Vermin Command for these?
I have. So when these plastics came out, they were considerably larger and chunkier than the old metal Clan Rats. And the old Clan Rat Command were fit in with the metal ones, so they were all quite scrawny little Skaven. And they just don't look right leading these big armored units of the plastic Skavens. So the Storm Vermin are about the right size. So I've grabbed the Storm Vermin commands rather than the Clan Rat commands to lead them. I've also managed to, in my eBay purchases of Clan Rats, not only do I have 60 of the plastic Clan Rats from 5th edition, I've also got 10 of the Hero Quest or Advanced Hero Quest Skaven, which are
Is that
those
those ones?
ones. Oh, I've got 9. I'm sorry. So one of the other clan rats is going to go and lead that unit. And then I've got 10 of the I think they're Warhammer Fantasy Battle Regiments plastic Skaven, where you used to get like 10 Skaven, 10 dwarves, 10 orcs, 10 Hyles, 10 dark. Like it was a ludicrous amount of different armies all in one box.
These guys.
Those guys. Yeah, so I've got like 10 of those, so they're going to be Skaven slaves. The Advanced Hero Quest ones are going to be Skaven slaves with shields for an extra half a point a model. It's 5 points for that unit to have shields. So they're going to have that, and then yeah, I've got a lot of clan rats. The contrast paints are amazing for trying to get through this number of models. I've used them sparingly in the past. I could not have got through this paint job without them. I'll
So
be
where
honest.
you've got them all painted up there, is that your first month's finished already?
So if you're on the other side of a 4-foot board, they probably look okay. As soon as you pick one up and look at it, it's a bit rough, shall we say. Like I concentrated on getting all of the block colors on, and now I'm going to go through and do what could be a highlight or a tidying up. So there are bits where the tunic colors got on the skin, or the shawl colors got on the tunic, or things like that. So I'm just going to go through and neaten it up with a highlight color to do that.
And just to highlight how crazy you are slightly, you base yours first.
Yes, I do. I am quite clumsy. So if I try, I'm doing the old school green and dry brush yellow bases. And if I tried to dry brush the bases yellow after I painted the models, all of my Skaven would be highlighted yellow. Probably at least up to the waist, if not higher. So I painted all the bases green. I dry brushed them yellow. I'll go up and tidy up the base rims afterwards, along with tidying up where I've managed to get contrast paints in various shades on the base. But yeah, I do it with all my models. I've got some electro priests for my admech to do up, and they are sand based but sprayed black.
I was going to say about basing. What I quite often do to get around what you're saying is I will quite often do the bases completely separate from the models. So I'll have the models on a base to paint, like just anything, and then I'll do the bases completely separately, and it enables you to do really quite like detailed basing. So on my so I did a Dogs of War army for Age of Sigmar. I got all my old Dogs of War models and rebased them all on rounds. And I wanted them all to be on a brick road, and I like hand built every single brick base with tiny scale bricks, and then like dry brushed them all, put all kinds of effects on them and everything like that. And the most annoying thing about that army, it's a really, really nice army. It's probably the nicest army I've ever done. It's got a land ship in it. But the thing people always say, and maybe it's because I did spend a lot of time on it, but people always come over and they're like, "Oh my god, they are the best bases I've ever seen." It's like, all the models are nice too, right?
You're going to have to throw some pictures of those up on your Twitter, because you're on Twitter, aren't you?
I am on Twitter.
I'll put your Twitter handle in the description of this video. Mike and Murray are not on Twitter, so any pictures they do of the rest of their army over the rest of this month, I will put on my Twitter. But yeah, Willard, you should definitely put some pictures of the Dogs of War, and mainly because I want to see them.
Yeah, no, I mean it's a really cool army, if I do say so myself. As I say, most people have never seen a land ship. The other thing about the land ship that's wild is I've played with it a lot. It's possible I have the most played with land ship. I've probably played about 30 games with it. I don't think most people have ever come out of their Forge World bag. But I've played with it twice at Warhammer World, and both times I've had people come over to the table and offer me like £500-600 in cash and be like, "I will buy that model from you right now." Like that.
That's not cool. That's a little bit, I don't know.
That's a bit weird. Yeah, that's like
both
walking
times
your
I've
dog and them It's like walking your dog and someone coming, "I'll buy your dog." It's like,
I was going to say, it's like
no.
someone offering how much for your wife.
Yeah,
I've
how
al-
many camels for your wife?
I've always said no, obviously, but and both times I will say both times it was at Warhammer World and it was Americans being like, a land ship. I've never seen one before. Will you sell it? Like, no, that's mine.
Yeah. I'm just going to quickly throw up my pictures because I realized I haven't shared mine yet. So here is my Bretonian army as I've got it. So, like I said, Bertrand Le Brigand. Oh, go back. Bertrand Le Brigand and his unit of merry men, and then the special edition Lord that came with the starter box and the Green Knight's horse, and then I've got the Medal Command and the Plastic Knights behind it. And so I've also got for next month some Knights Errant I've got from Troll Trader. They need to be stripped, but once they're stripped, I'm going to be picking those up for next month. And this is what I've got so far. So my musician, my unit champion. What's quite cool about these is laying your hands on Bretonian transfers is a bit awkward. They're really expensive on eBay. They're like more expensive than some of the models. But what I've found is that a lot of the 40k transfers, like this, for example, is from the House Terran Imperial Knight kit. And I just painted on a horn onto the horse head. And likewise here, it's some flowers from the Sisters of Battle transfer sheet. So there is a few nice heraldic symbols you can kind of borrow from other armies. I might borrow one like, I don't know, the Salamander's head could be like a dragon's head or something. I don't know. And likewise, some of the other Sister Battle symbols could work quite nicely for like questing knights and stuff. But this is what I've got so far. This one holds special mention. You're holding up Bretonian. Hang on, people can't see. You are holding up Bretonian transfer sheets. You literally have everything, don't you? Okay, here's the plan. We just stage a raid on Mike's house rather than going to eBay or Troll Trader or anything.
The thing is, like, I've got the Bretonian transfers. I have no Bretonians.
That's not entirely true. You do have the Bretonian Duke on Pegasus.
I do. Okay, you've got me. I don't. Okay, I don't have complete armies of pretty much anything. I've just got random assortments.
Because I've been eyeing your Bretonian Duke on Pegasus with avarice occasionally.
Have you? I did strip him.
You stripped him off already?
I was testing out the BioStrip. BioStrip is amazing.
It is
for
amazing.
Anybody who wants to strip. I'm sorry. Going on a slight aside. A, BioStrip is amazing, and B, the company that sell it, I can't remember, Furs or something.
Yeah, I think so.
I ordered one, and it went missing with a certain courier firm that nobody currently likes. Contacted them, and they immediately shipped me out a replacement through a different courier, and it was with me within 2 days.
That's pretty good
customer service. Will happily recommend them. And,
I've thrown
the product's
Knights
amazing
Errant for next month in BioStrip, and they're coming off nicely. They're coming off really nice and clean. But let me just quickly finish showing off the rest of my Bretonians. So I've just gotten to the one that's specially to menace Willard. Here we go. I'm calling this one Sir Coleman of Norwich. So in the heraldry section, it says about how using like a bull's head suggests that you've killed like a minotaur or you're a great killer of beasts. So this is my one specifically to come after Willard's army.
He's all talk from what I've heard.
And yeah, this one I've just finished the other night. No pun intended. And this is how my general's looking so far at the moment.
That lance is awesome.
He looks amazing. Properly fantastic.
But yeah, I love seeing them all kind of ranked up like this. And it's just something very pleasing about the lance formation.
It's also very effective in game.
As long as you wipe your opponent out on the charge, if you don't kill them on the charge, you are in trouble.
I've got Skaven. You're going to kill them all on the charge. We'll see.
Just hide in the wood. Shoot.
Can I join you in that wood?
No, you're not allowed in my wood. It's my wood.
I've got a warfare thrower. It'll be fine.
You're definitely not allowed in my wood then.
Although it's not very Warhammer to do it, there's a really good game which is called Hordes of the Things, and basically it's kind of a miniatures agnostic war game. And one of my favourite rules about it is basically you get an attacker and a defender, And if you are the defender in a scenario, you can completely set up the board. Like, you completely defend it no matter what, and you can set up all the terrain. So I've played a guy with a Wood Elf army who literally brought like 30 woods because you're fighting the Wood Elf army, and he just like the board was just covered in forest.
Actually, that's the thing. I've got to build some woods.
You have got to build some woods.
I've got to build some woods.
And really, you should try and get the traditional kind of like loo brush looking one, like loo brush that's been dipped in flock.
Oh yeah, definitely. Oh, do they still do those? I'm
sure model railway companies still do those, because that's pretty much where they were from at the time anyway.
I mean, loo brushes also still exist, I will say.
Yeah, but I'm not going into like, you know, Wilco's buying like 25 odd loo brushes and just having these people look at me oddly, and then me explaining that I'm going to actually spray paint them green and turn them into trees.
It's possibly less shameful to just be like, I just use a lot of toilet brushes, okay?
I run a hotel.
I have a lot of lavatories in my house.
No, just go in and buy them and make no explanation. Just look them dead in the eye at the cashier as you're buying 25 loo brushes, and don't explain yourself.
So there used to be a prize at Warhammer World for the best, most beautifully presented army list. And one year, me and Paul McCabe used to win this. We've won this about 4 times, because we always tried really, really hard. But one year, our Chaos army, we had like a Chaos and a Vampire army list together. And our army list was printed on the inside of a giant glass bottle. But we had to fill the bottle with blood, right? Okay. And the best thing we got for blood was a kind of bath foam. It was like a kind of like ritzy bath foam that you could get. But it was a really big bottle, and we needed a lot of bath foam. So I did an Ocado order where I ordered like 60 litres of this bath foam to fill this huge bottle that we were like inscribing in the inside of, lighting from the outside. And my housemate at the time, who's a very attractive publicist, was like, "Oh, are you doing an Ocado order this week?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm doing quite a big one." And she was like, "Can you put 4 bottles of vodka on it for me?" And I was like, "Okay." And anyway, so she answered the door to the Ocado man in her dressing gown, and he was genuinely like, I just need to ask you, is this some kind of weird sex thing? Like, literally, like, delivers this to this address, like 60 litres of bath foam, 4 bottles of vodka.
It's like a bizarre version of Lady Bathory. Oh, God. Okay, so are we going to have like a bizarre army list section to our Tale of Four Gamers? Do we have to have like the best presented army list?
I'm not. The thing about it is I'm not paired up with Paul, so I can't sort of rely on his artistic genius. But I'm happy to do a best presented army list as well. But yeah, so the ones we did for one where we did a wanted board. We did like a board with all these wanted posters on it once. We did like a flat, like for an Imperial Guard army, we did like a banner that our army was on like a 4-foot banner that we held up and all sorts of things like that. But it just got to the point where I think they abolished the prize because they knew we won it all the time, and everybody else was like, "Well, they always win. Don't. You've got to really go to town to have it."
I mean, the one with the banner must have been really irritating if you'd done it and then like the new data slate had come out and you had to change it.
Right, get the loom. We're gonna have to reweave the army list.
If it's Imperial Guard, surely you just put bullet holes through where you're changing.
There was one as well where Paul made like an enormous model globe, and like there was like a huge globe with like all the hive cities of Armageddon on it, and like the army list was like you could construct the army list by like dindling around the globe. Oh, we went to town on those a lot.
See, now I'm tempted to add like an army list section to the next Silent War. Get Paul to come just so we can see what he can come up with.
Yeah. The other thing that we used to really madly go to town on was at the doubles tournament. You could bring any piece of terrain you wanted for the Warhammer doubles, and including all the like wacky arcane terrain. So there were lots of people who had like, oh yeah, this plastic hill is actually an anvil of all that gives all this bonuses or whatever. But Paul and I didn't do that. The first year, we took a Sphinx and we went to the British Museum and bought like a replica Sphinx. And then the way Sphinxes work in Warhammer is you can riddle against them. And if you successfully pass the riddle, you get various bonuses. But this was on an initiative test. But we had an ogre and troll army, so we were rubbish at doing the riddles. But we thought it was really funny to have like a piece of terrain that was totally like disadvantageous to it. But the way it came in really useful in one game was playing an Empire army with loads of cannons, and we suddenly realised that basically the Sphinx was indestructible to cannon fire because it was a piece of terrain in Warhammer. You can't destroy terrain in Warhammer. And I had an iron blaster, so I did this whole thing where I was using the Sphinx like the blocks in Space Invaders, and I'd like pop out and shoot one cannon.
So talking about both doubles and terrain pieces and how they functioned. So me and Mike went to a doubles years ago when we worked at GW Reading. And it was our last game at this doubles, and you know when we played like two really cool teams, like really fun games, and then the last team were those guys, and so we decided to actually up the ante, and we knew the rules fairly inside out, having played every day while at GW for a while, and so we sort of like, well, okay, fair enough, well, we can play this game. And one of them had a block. Was it like 30 Black Orcs or something? Like huge unit of Black Orcs. And they decided there was this big piece of terrain on the board that was like a 1 inch from their edge, and it went all the way like almost like 4 or 5 inches beyond the halfway point. So they could go in their deployment zone. The next turn they'd pop out just wherever they wanted to, right into our deployment zone. And we're like, okay, cool. And so Mike was like, okay, fair enough. Well, what I'll do is I'll fire a screaming skull, a flaming skull spell at the building. Automatically hits because you're all inside the building. And if you take any damage, you have to take a leadership test, and you've got no rank bonus at the moment. So and we're aiming it this way. So this is the direction you have to travel, and there's an inch away from your deployment zone. So have fun. It was just like gloriously get rid of that lot. And then there was also the user, because we were using he was using ogres, and that was when they had the new Moor magic, and they could do lots of magic resistance, but you can use their magic resistance against their own spells because that's how magic resistance works. So they put all their magic resistance on themselves, then went to cast something, and so we just sort of like took our dispel dice and then the 5 extra dispel dice from them casting on themselves. I'm like, no. That was a glorious
plus 1 strength. Day. No, you won't.
Yeah. While I had a nice big long line of like, was it 50 clan rat slaves, Skaven slaves, just on an edge blocking terrain.
We should probably talk a little bit about what we're going to take next month. So I've already said I'm bringing my Knights Errant once they're finished being cleaned off. They came at about £4 each, and so that'll leave me £20, and I can either then maybe get a damsel or something with the last £5, or carry it over to the next month and use it on the buy 3 for the price of 2 kind of month. Mike, what are you planning for next month?
So I need to spend £2 on one more command model for my clan rats. So that's definitely coming. That leaves me £23. So I'm either going to find the smallest number of models I need to paint next month after having painted a lot this month, which might be a Screaming Bell, or 3 weapons teams. 3 Warpfire Throwers comes in at £21, I think. So that leave me £2 spare. Or I might be crazy and do a Plague Monk unit just to get even more rats painted.
So you get all the big units out of the way first.
Yeah, I think that's my last big unit. After this lot, I've got a unit of Plague Monks, and then it's down to like 5 Plague Sensors is like my next biggest unit after that. So depends on how I feel after I've painted 85 clan rats.
What have been your most of the wear on those?
Well, I've got the block colours in. I've now got all of the highlights to do of multiple colours on 85 models.
You'll be fine.
It'll be fine.
I'll get there.
I mean, truth be told, does anyone remember? It's a rank game, man. Nobody highlights the back 3 ranks, right?
I do, but to be fair, all of mine are like covered in heraldry. So
You sure
yeah,
I've
Willard,
got
what's
more
your
models?
month next month?
So my month next month is I am going to. I do need a price check on this, but I'm definitely going to get some. The actual models are going to be chaos. Well, the thing I'm getting is 5 chaos knights or
Okay.
4 knights and a hero. But basically, what I'm going to model them as is I'm going to fuse the Centaur models with the new Chaos Knight models to do like armored Centaurs who've been all the way to the Chaos Wastes. They've battled in the path to glory and they've become mighty hero beastmen. That's the sort of idea of what I'm doing with them. But because I really love both these models. I've always wanted to do kind of like mighty centaurs in armor, so there will be barded centaurs. So that's what I'm doing. But it's the question is I think in 1998 the Chaos Knights plastic box had come out, and I think they were
They
15
came out
for
in White
5.
Dwarf 218. I remember that from my White Dwarf walkthrough.
Yeah.
And they were.
I can't remember if it's 3 for 15 or whether it's 15 for 5, but
That's ridiculous.
you can enlighten me.
5 for £10.
I think I might have
Got
enough
5
money.
Chaos Knights for £10.
Yeah, I think I'm probably going to get 5 Chaos Knights, and I might then get a monster as well. I might get a monster to turn into as well. So I might get a Chimera and I might get Chimera and 5 Chaos Knights.
This is back when like 5 Chaos Knights is like 500 points, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
I very easily could have gone for like 20 Chaos Knights and then a trip to and then the rest of the money goes on the pub. Right.
Do what Fat Bloke did
That's
and buy a
ridiculous.
sandwich.
For £10, I mean,
That is ridiculous.
The dream.
Don't you remember the because Chaos Knights were one of those kits, like it was not the new one obviously, but a few of them are back, which were weirdly like for a unit of 5 of them was something like, was it 20 quid or something? And then you had the new Dragon Knights from for the High Elves were like £35 for the same amount of points and models and everything. It was
that was
like,
when they were metal, though, I think, wasn't it?
yeah,
The
it
plastic
was,
kit that you got for the Chaos Knights in '98.
no,
So
yeah, no,
it was an all plastic kit, but basically you had a situation where there was a Chaos hybrid kit that was really nice that came out with the 6th Ed Chaos, but otherwise it was plastic.
Yeah, it was
but
that kit.
when the Dragon Princes came out, they were like a whole new plastic sprue with unique horses, whereas the hybrid ones were just like metal heads for the classic barded horse kit.
Yeah,
no,
the Chaos Knights,
was...
you came with metal legs, metal horse heads, and then metal lance arms or musician or champion sword arm. But the rest of it was just the plastic horse kit and the plastic Chaos Warrior kit. So you used the plastic bodies and heads from the Chaos Warrior kit on the metal conversion bits. Okay, so Murray, what does your next month hold for you?
Right, so I still can't find that notepad that we were talking about. Don't know where I put it. I was scribbling the dimensions of my garden to buy pebbles, and so it's somewhere where I've in there. But it's either going to be a unit of 5 Glade Riders with shields and spears, because that's 20 quid, and that means I can move 5 quid over into the next month, and then use that as my splurge month where I buy 3 things for 2 instead, and that means I can make a lot more. Or I'm just going to spend all 25 of it on a unit of 5 War Hawks.
Okay, so either Flappy Death or Riding Death.
Yes, Flappy Shooty or Ridey Stabby. One way or the other. I think that's something like that. And then later on, I don't know. I had it all planned out, and I can't remember.
There's doing a custom army list engraved on a bottle of bath blood, and there's Murray's. I've written it down, and I left it in the garden somewhere.
It's not in that garden. It's probably at the.
Are you sure it's not in the garden?
It can't be in. I hope it's not.
Is it in a pile of pebbles in your garden now?
No, if it's in the garden, it's now covered in ice, and because it's very cold out there. Yeah, no, it's probably somewhere hidden under a box or in a bag or something around the folks. I don't know.
Fair enough. Cool. Well, I think that's a good position for us to stop for the evening. thanks very much for joining everyone. And I hope you've enjoyed having a bit of a natter about this and enjoyed sort of getting on with this classic Warhammer stuff. Just a reminder for everyone else, like I said, if you follow me on Twitter, you can find pictures of how my army's going, and I'll share pictures from Mike and Murray. And you should definitely give Willard a follow as well. Well, I'll stop there. Thanks for watching, everyone. And join us next month to see how we finish painting everything and how February's paint jobs are coming on.
Thanks very much. Have a good day.
Fantastic. See you later, everyone.